the question of priests and women in ministry is one that often comes up. If the Old Testament priests were all men, then should we not have all men as leaders in the New Testament church? I think that's basically the question. First of all, the New Testament model of leaders is not built upon the priesthood. And so it's really a false comparison in the first place. But let's look at the question of priesthood in the Old Testament. And it's interesting that in Genesis 1 and 2, God describes the Garden of Eden not only as a garden, but the language that is used there shows that it's a sanctuary. It's the very first sanctuary was in the Garden of Eden. And when he gives Adam and Eve their work, he tells them to till and to tend the garden. And those two Hebrew words, shamar and avad, are the same words, technical words, for the work of the priests in the sanctuary. So God's basically appointing two priests, Adam and Eve, in the garden. And in Genesis 3, when he places the robes upon them, that again, he uses technical language. He's again putting a status of priesthood upon both Adam and Eve after the fall. So the first priests were a man and a woman. And then in Exodus 19, when they come to Mount Sinai, God says to Israel, if you'll obey my voice, this is Exodus 19:5, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure. You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy people. God's original plan for Israel was that all the people, the entire nation, be priests. Unfortunately, they weren't willing to follow through on this plan, and so God had to bring again another stopgap measure in which only a few were priests from one tribe and just one family in a tribe. And the reason I think it's very clear why God did not choose priestesses in that context, because in all of the other ancient Near Eastern countries around them, the priestesses were the wife of the gods. And so they would bring in a sexual relationship into the temple because the king would go there and have sex with the priestesses as part of the fertility cults. And God wanted to avoid all of that mess coming in. But God's original plan was for all to be priests. And when we come to the New Testament, you come to First Peter chapter 2 and Revelation chapter 1. And again, we have the priesthood of all believers. You shall be a nation of priests. And there's a quotation from Exodus 19. So God's original plan is now in effect. And it's the priesthood of all believers, male and female, in the church.